everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the 209 Journey podcast. I'm Brittney Nunes, and I am lucky enough to be our host for another episode. Today, I'm really excited to be interviewing somebody that I've actually met in person, and I didn't know we were going to have him on the show, so I'm really excited to kind of catch up and see what he's up to and learn all about him and share with you and the audience all of the amazing things that he does and what he makes. And so without further ado, we are going to put on Joseph from Defiant Baking Company.
How's it going?
Hey, Joseph. How's it going?
Good. How about yourself?
Doing good. Thanks. Well, I know we were kind of talking a little bit earlier that it is pouring rain for both of us, me here in Modesto and you over there in Lodi, right?
Yes, it is. It's been a really gloomy, rough day when you like to be outside playing and doing stuff. So
Yeah, absolutely. I know you were kind of mentioning your dogs are having a tough time not being able to go outside, and my dog is having the opposite problem. So she is out in our outside kind of area. She's sheltered under the garage and everything, but she's like, let me back in.
yeah, we have a puppy. He's about 8 months now, but he's a ball of energy and he's 80 pounds almost. So
Oh my God.
he just keeps running, jumping on top of me, running back to the door, jumping on top of me, running back to the door. I go to let him out and he just stares outside. He's just like, okay, no.
Poor thing.
Yeah.
Well, it's actually funny that we just started talking about dogs instantly because that's actually how we met. So for those of you in the audience, a little backstory about us is that both of us were vendors at a vendor event, and it was in Oakdale, I believe, right?
Yeah, that one was at Last Call Brewing.
Okay, yeah, for Paws and Pints.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we had I had a fun time over there, and we ended up being next door neighbors. So I was there, and then you had your booth, and that's where I remember seeing you. And I have to say, when I was watching people come up to your booth, like everybody was just raving over your stuff. And so I would love for you to tell us about your baking company, what you offer, and all of that.
Yeah, for sure. So I started Defiant Baking Company last year. It was actually last January, so right at the beginning of the year. And I kind of found a need for my favorite style of bread, which is sourdough focaccia. You know, growing up Italian, we had focaccia all the time. So I was like, man, there's nowhere around here to get like super good, like homemade, wholesome ingredient focaccia. And I started making it, and also I knew at the end, like I was gonna eventually turn it into a pizza company, and so now I'm doing pizza on sourdough focaccia. So those are the two things I offer now. I've played around with a few other things, but those are the two things I really want to focus on.
Oh man, two of my favorite things. Focaccia is one of my favorite breads of all time. And then you pair that with pizza, and that is just dream come true for me.
Yeah, it's definitely been fun, and introducing people to a new style of pizza is really cool to do too.
Good. I'm trying to remember, maybe you can help me remember. There was one that you were selling, maybe it was the sourdough one, but there was like a flavor that was unique at your booth that day. Or maybe
So
it was like fall related.
So I have 5 flavors. I do a rosemary sea salt. That's like my plain flavor. I do a garlic and olive oil, which is like slow cooked garlic and olive oil, and I mix that into the dough before baking. And then after that, I do a pesto, a jalapeno cheddar, and then I think the one you were talking about was a cinnamon brown sugar, where it's like a cinnamon roll, but in a focaccia loaf. Yeah.
Yes, I think that was it, because I remember you have samples like on your table, and people were trying stuff and talking to you, and it was really cool. And I was like, man, I got to go over there and visit.
Yeah, that's what you got to do, is put the samples out there. Whenever I see people selling bread and not doing samples, I'm like, come on, they got to try it.
Like they've got to try it. They've got to know what they're tasting and everything. Well, now what is your favorite flavor?
It changes by the day. Like lately, I've been leaning towards that cinnamon brown sugar flavor myself. But
Okay.
before that, the pesto was going pretty solid.
Nice. Well, all of those flavors sound amazing. And I have a bunch of things that I want to ask you, and I try my best to kind of keep things chronologically. So bear with me. But I would love to hear kind of how you grew up a little bit. Now, you're not originally from Lodi, right?
No, not at all. I'm from Sonoma County, a small town called Geyserville. Not a lot of people know about it, but
Mhm.
it's getting a little bigger now. But it's just north of Healdsburg, Santa Rosa area.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so from there, how long did you live in that area before you kind of started making your way over here?
So I lived there most of my life. I mean, yeah, I lived in Sonoma County most of my life. I spent a couple years up in Oregon. Like I had a pretty dysfunctional childhood to where like I was dealing with like a lot of drug addicts, alcoholics, criminals, all that kind of stuff. So like I never really stayed in one place very often. But my dad, when he met his best friend, he ended up staying in the same house for like 25, 30 years. So no matter where I went with my mom, I would always end up back there at my dad's at the same house.
Hmm.
So yeah, so did that, living in Geyserville most of my life, and then I joined the military in my early 20s, and from that was like my first time outside of living in Oregon, like moving away from Sonoma County, being stationed down in. It's funny. I joined the army to get out of California. Ended up in the worst part of California, just outside of Barstow,
Oh,
out in the middle of the Mojave Desert.
yeah.
Yeah. Um, and then yeah, from there I went to Germany for a little bit, got out, went to art school in San Francisco, and I was with my now ex-wife at the time. She grew up here in Lodi, and we made our way back over here to where she grew up. I've been here ever since.
Wow. So I remember, and we must have talked, or there's so much going on at vendor events, but I knew that you had military background. And so that was going to be one of the questions that I asked. So it was Army you said you were in?
Yeah, I was a combat engineer in the army. Basically, I just blew stuff up and drank too much.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how long were you in the Army then?
About 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah, I was medically discharged with some back issues, and so they were getting ready to deploy to Afghanistan. My body couldn't handle it, so they were just like, "Yep, we're either sending you home or you could take a desk job." I was like, "I'm going home. I don't want to have
Wow.
a desk job."
Yeah, no, I wouldn't either. So with the injury that you had and not being able to pursue that further, was that disappointing to you or were you a little relieved?
A little bit of both. I wasn't having like the best time in the military.
Mhm,
I mean, the my name of my company is Defiant Baking Company for a reason. I don't do well with like being told what to do all the time.
mhm.
I did have a lot of fun in the military. Had a lot of positive sides. I got a lot of great benefits from it. Learned a lot. Helped me grow up quite a bit. But I think I don't really regret getting out when I did.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you so much for your service. I really just appreciate the time that you did spend in the military and everything that you did. And so thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Um, and from there, I would love to know a little bit. So when you came back, how long was it between coming back and then getting to Lodi, making that decision to move?
About 2.5 years, because so I had to make a choice when I got out of the army. It was either go to culinary school or go to art school.
Mhm,
And I was like, I've loved cooking my entire life. So I was like, okay, well, I don't want to make that a living because I don't want it to stress me out and have that be a
mhm,
negative aspect of my life. So I was like, I love creating photography, and I feel like that'd be something that would be harder to turn into a negative aspect.
mhm.
And so went to art school in San Francisco, lived in Berkeley in a really bad neighborhood. We rented an apartment sight unseen. And then
Oof.
yeah, it was, but I was in Germany. My ex-wife was in San Diego, so we really didn't have a choice.
Mm.
But then we moved to Emeryville into a really nice apartment, but that's when like rent was just starting to skyrocket in the Bay Area.
Mhm.
And so we had an opportunity to move out here for cheap, so we did.
Yeah, no, it's much cheaper living in Lodi than it is in the
Hmm.
Bay Area or anywhere near San Francisco or Berkeley, anything like that. What art school did you go to?
Academy of Art in San Francisco, studied photography
Okay.
there. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually, it's funny because I went to art school as well. I went to art school in Southern California. But before I made that decision, when I was still living in Modesto, I looked at the Academy of Art and I almost went there. And then there was another one, I believe it was in Emeryville because that's where Pixar is, so that was a
Hmm.
big deal for me to be in that area. And then my family and I ended up moving to Southern California. And so I ended up pursuing art school down there. But I know that school a little bit, and I know that great artists come from there. So that's really cool that you got to go.
Yeah, it was fun. Had a great time going there, and it gave me an opportunity to like really dive into photography, which is something I've always loved. So that was
You
pretty
know
cool.
what's funny about that too? I don't mean to cut you off, but when I was looking through your Instagram profile and everything, I noticed your photography is really good. Like
Thanks.
the lighting is really good and everything, and I was like, man, they have a good photographer. Like it's top notch. So that's really funny.
Yeah, I was actually before COVID, I was starting a food photography business because I just still kept finding myself being dragged back towards food, and I loved it so much. And it
Mhm.
was really starting to pick up, and then COVID happened, and then kind of just all went away. So
Yeah, well, as it did for a whole lot of things. I know right now in the animation industry and stuff, it's the AI. AI is a
hmm.
big killer of a lot of that. So you went to school for photography, and your photography is amazing. I mean, it looks really great on your social media profiles and everything. COVID hit, and what made you decide to kind of change lanes a little bit?
So like I said, well, the COVID kind of killed my photography business that was like just started to pick up. I really didn't want to start back over again because it's a lot of tough work. And at this point in my life, like I didn't have the best work ethic. I like kind of fell into like a really lazy routine, just trying to do things as
Mhm.
easy as possible. And then one of my clients, who was actually a butcher shop literally right next door to me, asked, they're like, "Hey, do you have any interest in being a meat cutter? Like, we have an opening, and we know you're not shooting as much right now." So I jumped on that and ended up getting to know those guys really well. And actually, I still partner with them for my pizza supplies.
Nice.
Yeah. So it just felt like, even though I tried to take a route away from food, it just pulled me right back into it. So
Mhm.
yeah,
Well, sometimes you can't escape what's destiny.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
then what's cool too is that in the last episode that I did with Matt from Honest Acre Farms is that there's a lot of art that goes into other things like farming for him and then for you and what you do. I mean, with making your food and all of that, like there's artistry that goes into that, running a social media profile and all of that. So I'm sure you still get to have that creative outlet.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And one thing I've always believed is that food is a type of art. Like it is
Mhm.
100%. And anything that goes into food is an artistry. So it's just food
Yeah.
that you eat. It's art that
Yeah,
you eat. That's all. That's the only thing different. You don't look at
absolutely.
it. You do look at it for a second, and then you just eat it right up.
Yeah, yeah, no, I 100% agree that culinary arts and all of that, it's amazing. It really is. And even like you mentioned earlier, the photography that goes behind art, I mean, behind capturing the food and all of that is art itself. So
Hmm.
lots of different ways. If you're a creative person, lots of different ways you can get that out. So
Oh,
that's
absolutely.
cool.
Yeah, I
And
was just joking with one of my baker friends that's here in town. I noticed how most of my friends who did photography either
mhm.
also bake or do something with food.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, I have one friend in Modesto who actually runs a cake shop with her mom on top of being a photographer and teaching photography at a school. And
Oh.
then, yeah, I have a couple other photographer friends that run full-time photography business and bakeries up here.
That's so cool. I feel like artists in general, like they have multiple things going on. Like, I mean, it's just kind of part of an artist's nature. There's just,
Yeah.
you don't like to just have one thing going on. You got to have other things.
Oh, not at all. Yeah, life has to be chaotic.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And sometimes it's like you want to kind of slow down and like, okay, I'll enjoy this. And you're like, I just can't. I have to have multiple
Yeah.
things going on. Visionary
Yep.
kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Well, That's really neat. Like I said, that you still get to use your creative, aspirations and stuff in just different ways now. So you started off doing the focaccia bread, and was this something that you always liked to do, or did it start as you got a little older?
Definitely when I was older, because like I joined in with all the sourdough bros that everybody learned to make sourdough during COVID because we all had nothing else to do. And I hated shaping like regular sourdough rounds. I hated it. It was too
Mhm.
tedious for me. Like I've never thought of myself as a baker, always a cook. So, and if you talk to a cook, there's like a huge difference between cooking and baking. And baking's pretty meticulous, and like I'm just used to throwing shit together and calling it good at the end. And so with the sourdough rounds, you had to be so tedious and like get it nice and tight, the fermentation times and all that stuff. And fermentation times are still important with focaccia, but like the end product, you don't have to get it tight. You just throw it in a pan, throw whatever ingredients you want on it, and dimple it in. And as long as your
Mhm.
dough is good, you're most likely gonna have a good loaf of bread.
Mhm.
And so yeah, that's where I got started with focaccia, and then I just kind of played around with it for like here and there over the last few years until I decided to start making it a business.
Cool. Yeah, I know, especially when COVID hit, the sourdough craze. I have multiple friends that got into that. One of my friends from art school, she became a stay-at-home mom, and she started doing sourdough loaves, and she would like paint. I guess there's edible paint.
Oh
And
wow,
so that was like her little twist on it. But yeah, it is way too tedious. Anytime I watched any videos, I was like, ain't nobody got time for that. I am not gonna
yeah,
be one of those. So
yeah,
I totally understand.
yeah, and I definitely like I don't follow all the rules that people like try to make about sourdough. I think that people take it too seriously. I'm like, that's not fun. It's not taking all the fun out of it. Like,
Mhm.
so people are like, oh, you got to keep your starter like this. You got to do it exactly this temperature. Do it for exactly this long. I'm like, no, you don't.
Part of that defiant, huh?
Yeah, absolutely.
I actually wrote notes when I was getting ready for this episode about that because I thought it was interesting using the word defiant as your main word in your title there. And when you think about it, usually that's bad. People
Hmm.
like defiant is kind of seen as a bad thing. And so I think that it's really cool the way you're spinning it, and it's part of your personality that you don't like to be told what to do or how to do it or whatever. You like to make your own way, find your own way, and now that's become your brand. And I think that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, well, part of the reason is that I named it Defiant Baking Company is like I really love the country in we live. I don't necessarily love the government that we have, but I love the country that we live in and the ideas in which our country was founded on. And the founding fathers of this country were the ultimate defiant people. Like they literally stood up
Yeah.
to the most powerful government in the world to create something amazing. And then like started thinking from there, it's like no one's ever done anything great without being defiant in some sort of way. Like you always have to be
Absolutely.
defiant in order to achieve greatness. So I've
Yeah.
always like
Yeah.
I've embraced the defiant label. Like I always have.
Yeah, and and it's not a bad thing. Like defiant isn't bad, and that's not a negative term to use. It is, I mean, absolutely. I 100% agree that if you're not defiant, at least even a little bit, then you're not going to be able to push forward and strive for greatness and conquer new, achievements and stuff. And so I really like that a lot.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was going with. I mean, there's a few other aspects to it, but that was the main one.
Mhm. So you started making your focaccia and everything, and, is there a secret recipe, or have you been kind of perfecting it over time?
Nothing secret. Honestly, it even changes a little bit every time.
Mhm,
Like I have like my basic dough recipe, but from there it's like, oh, this time I'll add a little bit more olive oil. I like to play with things and like keep it like it's all
mhm.
consistently tastes the same, but like it's a little bit different here and there. And I know I notice it, and I don't think a lot of other people notice it. But for me, it's just like fun to do that. So like I said,
Yeah,
sometimes I'll do a little extra salt, sometimes I'll do a little extra olive oil. Like, oh, sometimes I'll mix this in a little bit more, sometimes a little bit less. And yeah, there's no secret recipe. It's just one base thing, and then from there it branches off into separate things.
that's cool. That's cool that you're, even willing to deviate from a recipe that you have just to try new things, try and see, what new flavors you can make or how different textures you might be able to get and things like that. So when you were making the focaccia, how did it end up pursuing pizza?
So, this is actually a little bit of a long story, so I'll try to make it short. But
That's cool.
I started working for someone who was opening a restaurant here in town. Like my roommate hooked me up with this job. Like I said, I've loved food my entire life. He's loved my cooking. He knows that like a goal of mine in life was to run a restaurant. And so he's like, my boss is purchasing a established restaurant connected to a store. It's like, I know you don't feel super comfortable running a restaurant, like never really having a ton of restaurant experience, but just talk to him and see what happens. So we talked, ended up working for him. He wanted me to learn how to run a restaurant while the old restaurant was still established. That way, by the time like we could shut it down and open up the new pizza spot, I'd like have some experience and we can go forward from there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the second construction started, they realized like, oh, this isn't going to be a 3-month turnaround. This is going to be like a lot longer. And so my 2 to 3 months that was meant to be learning at the one restaurant ended up turning into 7 months of working 12 to 16 hours a day, 6-7 days a week, constantly dealing with issues. And then when we finally shut down, I started working in his store, and then construction just kept taking them forever, until the point where it's like, all right, I can't afford to keep paying you until this happens. So let's take a step back. When the restaurant reopens or it's closer to opening, we can have you come in here. We'll start working on your menu and everything again, and everything will be good to go. That was the last I ever heard from him. And so that's when I was like, all right, I'm just going to start my own business. And so we were working on pizza recipes and things like that. And so that's what I wanted to keep doing. I just fell in love with making pizza because of that job. And I was like, well, now I don't have to listen to someone else tell me what I can and can't do with the pizza. Now I can make exactly what I want to make, which is a Roman style of pizza called pizza al taglio, which is on like a thin focaccia.
Ooh, nice. That
Yeah,
sounds
no one else
delicious.
around here does it. So
Man. Oh, well, I'm going to need to try that 100%. So what does it, I'm really interested because I don't know what it takes to start a business when it has food in it. Like I know from having a small business of my own, like I don't have to worry about any food regulations or anything like that. So like what were the hoops you had to jump through to start selling food?
So it was surprisingly easy
Oh,
because
good.
I run everything out of my house. Because like I started with bread, and bread is like it's a non-hazardous material, so like you're legally allowed to sell it from your house as long as you get a cottage food permit. And that's what you do. You just go through the health department and fill out some paperwork, and you're pretty much good to go once you're approved.
Wow.
And so I did that, converted our get for the first few months. I was operating out of the kitchen, the little tiny home oven we have, which that was miserable until I could get the money together to get this oven right here and convert my guest room into a bakery. Now, the pizza side of it, I'm not allowed to do at home. So the pizza side of it, like I
Okay.
can bake the bread for it, like the actual dough, I can par bake that, but then I have to take that to a commissary kitchen, which I have with a partnership downtown. And then I like finish baking my pizzas there before I bring them to an event.
Okay. So you do your pizzas for certain events and you have to do the pizza part of it in like an actual kitchen kind of thing.
Yeah, for some reason I'm allowed to sell bread, but the second I put tomato sauce on the bread, I'm no longer allowed to sell it from my house. I don't understand it.
I'm like, that doesn't make much sense now, does it?
Yeah, because I guess it's like something about food being pre-packaged versus not pre-packaged. I'm like, okay, so if I sell someone a loaf of focaccia, they open the package and start eating it, they're fine. But if I sell someone a pizza, they open a box and start eating it, it's a different thing. I don't understand it.
Well, at least you have found a way to do it.
Yeah.
That way you can do that and yeah, some of those rules sure are silly. I imagine there were much more to it, so I'm glad that it wasn't too terribly difficult
Yeah, no,
to
it
start doing
actually
that.
really wasn't. It wasn't difficult at all. Like once you realize that all you need to do is apply for a cottage food permit, make sure you're like, you got to take your food safety course, and that's about it. Pay your fees, and you're good to go. They come and inspect your place like once a year, and that's it.
Mhm.
Unless you get
Okay.
like a complaint about you, and so far, knock on wood, I haven't. So
Good. Well, from all the people that were raving I saw in person, I can't imagine that you'd get any complaints. So I'm really glad that you're able to do both, because if you love the focaccia and you love the pizza part of it, and being able to do both is really cool. So now when you go to events, do you have to pick between the two, or can you do both at the same time?
depends on the event. So like for a Paws and Pies event, like where we met, I can just do
Mhm.
bread because that requires a different license, a different application, and all that stuff. So I'd have to apply as a food vendor instead of like prepackaged foods. It's two different things. But like this last weekend, I went out to Durst Winery. I just went out there and set up, and I had my pizza ovens with me, and I had a rack full of bread that I baked, and then I just sold pizza squares and bread to go.
Mhm.
Yeah, so it just depends on the event. Um, the way I tell people is like on my weekend events, because they're usually a little bit busier, I like to bring both focaccia and pizza. And then on my weekday events, I just do pizza. And then I do a bread pickup every week on my front porch.
Okay. Wow. Busy, busy. So is this your full-time gig, or do you have other things that you do?
Nope, this is it. I mean, I do bartend at Bricks and Hops downtown Lodi like once or twice a month, but this is pretty much it.
Okay. Well, that's really neat that you were able to take a passion of yours and be able to go in the direction once the photography wasn't, going as planned, and now it's your full-time job. That is amazing. That's a lot of people's dream when they start doing a small business or start really taking a hobby kind of seriously. So, congratulations.
Thanks. Yeah, I did that. I went from doing this part time. Well, I was working a part time job at a different brewery in town. And once I decided like this is what I want to do, I quit that job,
Mhm,
and that freed up my weekends to where I can actually start doing more events. And then once I started
mhm,
doing like, 1 to 2 events every week, like I was making enough to where I was like, oh, okay, I could pay all my bills. So I'm good.
mhm.
And then from there,
Wow.
once I was able to focus, I just kept getting busier and busier and busier. So it was nice.
Yeah, yeah, I bet as that kind of traction keeps going and people start talking and they follow you online, and it just gets busier and busier for you, I'm sure.
Oh,
Is
absolutely.
it just is it just you that's doing this, or do you have help in the kitchen? How's that all working?
So I'd say 99.9% of it is me.
Mhm,
I do all the baking and the packing and the marketing and all in the photography and all that stuff. My wife, she helps me at the booth, and by helping me, mostly it's like if I get super busy, she'll help me handle with customers and stuff, or but mostly it's just keep me company. And then she helps me
mhm.
with dishes. She always tells people like she actually wants to get a shirt made that says "I don't bake, I clean." Because for the
That's
longest
funny.
time, people were like, they didn't believe me that I was the one baking it. If it was the two of us there, and they're like, some little old ladies be like, "Oh, so your wife bakes all this and you sell it?" I'm like, "No, I bake
Like,
it."
no. That's so funny because in my relationship with my husband, it's the same way. He's the one that truly enjoys baking and cooking. Like, I'll do it. I mean, I'll cook dinner for our family and everything, but he's the one that enjoys it. So
Yeah,
whenever he's in a baking mood, I'm like, dude, do it. Like, bake whatever you want. I'll do the dishes and then I'll eat all the things.
yeah, that's pretty much the
So
agreement we have too.
now I met your wife because I ended up drawing your dog at the vendor event that we met at. And so, how did you guys meet? How long have you been together?
So we've been together for let's see, 2022. So yeah, coming up on 3 years. Um,
Hmm.
she always jokes about this, but she's like, "Don't tell people we met on Tinder. Tell me we met at Folsom Hotel," because we did actually meet at like we met face to face at Folsom Hotel for like a little country concert. But yeah, we met on Tinder.
Aw. Well,
Yeah,
there's such a negative stereotype with that, but I think online dating is how it goes most of the time nowadays. Like, I mean, I've been out of the dating scene for a little bit. My husband and I are about to celebrate 7 years, but um, I mean, I think that most of it's online nowadays anyway. So,
I think so too. Um, I mean, I know even when like I was single, like it was like the big stigma. It was just I don't even know why
mhm.
I'm on these stupid dating apps, blah blah blah. But then it worked out. So
Yeah, there's plenty of relationships. Some people even meet on video games. I mean, there's
hmm
all kinds of relationships, and it's the longevity of it and making it work that really matters. So I think that's great. Shouldn't be embarrassed about that at all.
no, we just we're both kind of old school, and so it's
Yeah,
very
no,
funny.
I totally get it. I know when I was in the dating scene, I met my husband through mutual friends, but I did, dabble in online dating, and it was always a little awkward to be like, "Oh yeah, we met online."
Yeah.
But anyway, that's great, and I'm glad that she's supportive of you and helpful, and that you got your dogs. You have any kids?
I have a daughter through a previous relationship from when I was a teenager. But together we don't have kids and we don't think we're gonna have
Kids are a lot of work. I got two, and we're staying at two.
any.
That's
Yeah.
it.
We have 3 dogs, so we're good.
Yeah, that's good. We got two boys, and we have a dog, and we've got a giant tortoise, and we're good. That's it. Oh, and I got my rabbit back here. But yeah, kids are a lot of work, so I definitely understand that decision.
Yeah, especially with me, like, working, starting a business and all this stuff.
Yeah,
And we have a small house and it's us two, our 3 dogs, and our roommate. So the house is pretty
yeah,
full.
that's busy house, busy life. So
Yeah.
wow. Well, with your business and everything, I'd love to know what the biggest challenge has been, whether it was starting the business or before the business even was a thing. Like, what would you say your biggest challenge in all of this has been?
I think the biggest challenge is because I really enjoy what I do, is turning it off. Like
Mm-hmm.
I can think about this 24/7. Like even when we took a couple days off to go to San Diego after my last pop up of the year last year, and the entire time all I was doing was just like thinking about work.
Yeah,
And I think the biggest thing is to just like the biggest challenge for me is turning that off and being
yeah.
like, okay, separate work. You know, you're at home, you're chilling, and it's hard for me too because I work at home.
Mm,
So it's like, yeah, my work is at home. I think that's the
yeah.
biggest challenge.
Yeah, I can understand that. I mean, when there's no separation, especially there's no office you go to or kitchen you go to, it's there at your house and it's something. I mean, when you're the one that does, like you said, 99.9% of it, I mean, you're the one that's doing the social media and the actually creating the product and going out and selling it and doing that stuff. That's a lot of work. And I'm sure when you even do get time to relax, it doesn't feel like it. I would
Yeah,
imagine.
it definitely doesn't.
Yeah.
And especially too, like working with pizza, like me and my wife both love pizza. And so like every time we're out, like, oh, let's try this pizza spot. And so like, oh, and then I started thinking about pizza and I compare it to mine and
Mm.
what I could do to make mine better and what they're doing and blah blah blah. So it's pretty
Yeah.
difficult. The other thing that's been that was start difficult for a little bit and it's like kind of becoming it again now that I'm doing pizza is finding events or markets to be a part of.
Mm. Mhm.
And so like that took a while to get used to. And then now it's kind of starting to take a while again because like I'm starting completely over, it feels like. So
Mm.
yeah. But I know that like
Yeah, it
once it
does.
gets picked up enough, it'll go.
Right. Oh, yeah, 100%. And, going back to, what I said earlier about the more, you make those connections and people try your product and everything. I mean, word of mouth and especially on social media, that all spreads really fast. So it'll
hmm
pick up even when it has its slow times or so just keep going at it. And I can understand that it would be hard to turn that off. I mean, you're busy doing all the things and you've got to stay relevant, not only online, but trying new flavors or, different ways to do things. And, that's a lot. And it all starts up here, so it's hard to turn that
Yeah.
off. So, well, yeah, I
Yeah,
can
I
totally
can't wait
understand.
for spring when it's a little bit busier, and then that's also when Matt, who you had on your podcast, you'll
Mhm.
have some more stuff that me and him like to team up and collaborate on things. We did a few loaves together last summer, and we're looking forward to doing some pizza stuff this summer. So
Oh, that's so cool. I love that. Yeah, when he mentioned, you and everything, and then I had remembered that we had met, and it's just so funny. It's such a small world, and when you get yourself out there, like that's such a big thing. And hopefully, those who are listening or watching this episode, and even the last episode, it's just proof that if you just do it, just like Matt said in the last episode, and then you get yourself out there and you make those connections, and then you make it happen. I mean, it just you meet great people along the way, and then you end up vibing with somebody, and then you collaborate with them, and it's great.
yeah, it was funny with Matt because we've known each other for a while. I don't remember how we met. It was either at farmers market because Lodi farmers market's like the thing to do every Thursday here during the summer.
Mhm.
And like I said, I've always been obsessed with food. So like walking by his booth and his produce is always so beautiful. I think me and him either just started talking that way, or I'm pretty sure that's how we met. But like the day I announced I was going to start doing this, he was the first one to be like, "Yeah, dude, let's do this. Like, sky's the limit. Let's go. Like, you're gonna kill it."
That's so cool. I almost feel like this episode and last episode should be like a part one, part two, because it's kind of the same thing. We all know each other, and that's funny.
I know. Yeah, that's awesome.
So the main area that you do your markets in is the Lodi area, correct?
Yeah, so I mean, I want to do the area between like Turlock and Sacramento. Like that, I want that to be
Mhm.
like my working area, but because it's all still so new, like I just started this last year, I'm
Mhm.
focusing on Lodi. I've done a few events in Turlock and Modesto for bread. I haven't done pizza down there yet, but
Mhm.
like bread, I feel comfortable going out of Lodi, but pizza right now, I'm like sticking to Lodi, Stockton, Galt, that kind of area, until like I get a few more events under my belt, then I can start going further and further away.
Right. Yeah, I'm sure that staying kind of close to your original area is probably the best with the pizza side of it. But
Hmm.
I know that you're branching out, a little bit further with the focaccia side of it. So is that the area that you want to focus in, kind of this 209 area, or are you planning on going even bigger, like going further out?
I mean, probably focusing on the 209 area, like between, like I said, like Turlock and like up to Sacramento, Rancho Cordova area. Just because I like to use my connections I have, like because I like the craft beer scene so much. I know a lot of people in the craft beer scene up there, like in
Mhm.
Sacramento, Rancho, Folsom, and stuff. So yeah, and I love those areas. Like basically, if it's an area that I really like, I'll try to start selling pizza and focaccia there.
Mhm. Now, when you have the connections that you're making, whether it's vendor events or with the areas that you can do a pop up and everything, are you usually the one that reaches out to them, or do they reach out to you, or how do those connections work?
So when I first started, it was me reaching out to people, but now people are
Mhm.
starting to reach out to me. Like I've just been reached out
Cool.
to by a couple of really big wineries out here about events that are way too big for me to be doing, so I had to turn them down. But they're like, "Oh yeah, we got like 300-400 people." I'm like, "I am one person doing all this
Mhm.
by myself, so I'm
Yeah.
gonna have to turn that down." But yeah, wineries and breweries are starting to reach out to me now, which is really cool. Um, yeah, it's pretty interesting to see that happen.
That's awesome. I'm sure that is really exciting when someone reaches out to you and like, "Hey, can you come over and do this?" or whatever. Like, I bet you that's really exciting.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's almost like another validation thing that it's like everything I'm doing is doing it the right way. So
Yeah, for sure. I mean, to put yourself out there, it takes a lot of courage to do that and to, make a living out of it, especially too. I mean, you just have to keep moving forward and strive to make those connections and, make a good name for yourself. And so I'm really glad that that's going well. And so did you say that you've been doing this officially for a year, or has it been longer, shorter?
So yeah, I sold my first loaf of focaccia in middle of January last year,
Mhm.
and yeah, then I signed up for the Lodi Farmers Market in May, but I started like I guess the official launch of my company was in March, but I started this in January.
Wow, that's amazing. And to grow, I mean, as you have been already so fast, I mean, that's really impressive. Usually, people, I mean, there's hardly ever such thing as a overnight success. And usually people say it takes anywhere from 3 to 5 years,
Yeah.
really, in reality. And so to have this much traction going in your first year is amazing. That's awesome.
Yeah, I don't think I'd be able to do it without Instagram or being able to do it from home because
Mhm,
luckily bread doesn't cost a ton of money to make.
mhm.
Um, as long as you use I use really high quality ingredients, like all my flour is organic, no spray. I'm hoping to have like a continuing relationship with a local mill that's down in Turlock. Um, but like using high quality ingredients, even though it is high quality, it's still flour, so it's not overly expensive. So I feel like the getting your name out there and the getting a lot of customers comes pretty quick. And once you're able to do that regularly, like you can sell enough bread and still pay the bills.
Yeah. I
Especially doing it from home. If I had to rent a place, that'd be a different story. But
Yeah, I know getting a place, an actual physical location is crazy. I mean, I've kind of dabbled in looking at that for myself and it's like, oh, I don't know when that's going to happen, but it's
yeah,
expensive. So I'm glad that you're able to do your thing from home and to source locally. I mean, if you partner up with Matt from Honest Acre Farms and then talking about getting your grains and stuff from the mill in Turlock. I think I might know which one you're talking about too, but
yeah,
I think
Techner.
outsourcing. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah, Techner. So I've gotten sunflower from her, and it's absolutely amazing. But
is it
so
really?
like I mix it. Yeah, it's so good. But I mix some of her flour in with the flour that I get from Central Milling, which is a really high quality company out of Utah.
Mhm.
Um, and so like I just switched my flour, but it's from Central Milling. So now I'm gonna have to reach back out to her so I can like start figuring out my percentages. I don't want to mix hers in. So
Yeah, that would be really great to get that locally and be able to incorporate that into that. I know, especially from last episode, that really has inspired me to look more locally for things, whether it be for food or for, I mean, any kind of thing to see if there are any local small businesses or companies. And being part of this podcast has really opened my eyes to that as well. And so I'm gonna have to try that flower out and go meet her
yeah,
because
it's really good.
that's cool. Well, I started following her online, so that's how I think I knew who you were talking about. So that's cool. But I'm glad that that's working out and that you're making those connections. And so I asked you your greatest challenge. Now, what has been your greatest reward in all of this, would you say?
Just being able to pay my bills, provide for me and my wife with doing something that I absolutely love doing. Like,
Mm,
like I said it a little bit earlier, like I had a really rough childhood. Um, and so being able to come out of that and being the first in my family to graduate college and start my own
mhm,
business and have it be like starting to be pretty successful, it's just such a rewarding experience. And it's like, you know, those kind of experiences generally aren't for people that grew up with my childhood. And so to like make it
mhm.
happen, it's been really cool.
Man, that is really cool. And, I don't want to dive too deep into your past and everything because I know especially if you have a childhood and upbringing like that, it's hard to talk about. My husband is actually from what it sounds like very similar circumstances. And, he and his siblings, they are just all doing very well in life. And from where they came from to be how they are now is just incredible. And so that's really neat that even with the upbringing and the childhood that you have, that you've made something of yourself and you have a bright future and you're doing something that you love. And not everybody can say that. No matter how they grew up, there's not a whole lot of people that can say that they are genuinely loving what they're doing with their time and with their career. And so that's just amazing that you've been able to do that for yourself.
Yeah, it's super cool to just be able to like put everything into something and have it work out. Like never
Yeah.
had that experience before. So that's probably the most rewarding thing is just making a living, doing what I love to do, and also being able to say no. Like
Mm-hmm.
if like when people wanted me to do pop-ups during the little week that I wanted to go to San Diego with my wife, and I was like, nope, I'm good. I want to go take a
Mm-hmm.
week off and go chill on the beach.
Yeah, and that's a big deal because especially when people are starting out and they have this as their full-time job and everything, you can't afford to say no.
Hmm.
And so that's really great that for one you do that, because some people, whether they can or can't, just won't say no and they get
Yeah.
burned out and everything. And so I'm glad that you do that. It's important to say no sometimes, but that you're able to, say no to some of the things. And I just think that that's really important, and that's really great that you are at that point in this, that you can be a little bit more picky in what
Hmm.
associate with and where you go. And so that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, I can be picky and it's great. It's just more so about like understanding because I've worked jobs where I've been burnt myself out before, doing it for
Hmm.
someone else. And it's luckily, I spent the last year working 60, 70 hours a week doing this and I haven't been burnt out at all because I loved what I'm doing. But I was kind of hitting that little wall where it was like, all right, I need to just take a step back, take a few days off, go relax, see my brother, hang out with my wife, chill on the beach, have some beers, eat some pizza, and have a good time. But yeah, it's just nice not having to ask for that permission to do it, and just to be able to actually just go do it.
Right, right. That's great. Now tell me what your average week is like. I mean, I know you do events and things like that, but I'm sure it takes a lot of time to make all the stuff. So what does your average work week look like?
Yeah, so Mondays are usually like my recoup, relax day, get a little bit of cleaning done, do my finances, paperwork, stuff like that. It's like my chill day at the house. Tuesday is generally like my supply day. I'll go get my supplies, my flour. I just started going through a distributor, so I just go down to my commissary kitchen and pick up all that stuff. Go do run any errands I need to. Wednesday, I start doing my baking for the week. So, like, actually, after this, I'm going to be making some dough for. Oh, today's Tuesday, huh? I get confused on what day it is. Uh, every Thursday, I have a pop up at Pop the Bubbly downtown. That's for pizza. And so I was going to start making dough for that tonight because it's like a 2 day process to make dough and bake it and all that stuff. So yeah, like Tuesday, Wednesday, I start the baking for the week. Um, Thursday, I have a pizza pop up, and then usually Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, I'll have like two or three pop ups in those days and go do those.
Wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a lot. And I'm glad that you're giving yourself some time, especially on those Mondays, to, allow yourself to just be and make those connections with your family and your wife and everything in real life, and
Yeah,
to spend some time at the house.
I did just have to promise her like, okay, I'll either take a Friday or Saturday or Sunday off every week. One of those days I have to take off, just so her and I can
Mhm.
actually have one of her days off to stop and relax and play with the dogs and do stuff around the house. So
Yeah, absolutely. Binge a show on Netflix, whatever whatever the dailies you do. That's
yeah.
that's good. Now I have a couple of last questions for you.
Mhm.
Now one of the things that I would like to know are your future plans. Do you have future plans for your business or goals you want to meet?
Yeah. So um, my goal this year is to either have so right now, like when I do a pizza pop up, it's literally just tables, a canopy, and my pizza ovens, and I call it good on that. But I'd really like to get into a trailer or rent a space from someone that's like attached to an existing business. So like
Mhm.
a coffee shop or something like that. Like I don't want my own building, but I want to be in a building outside of my house. So that's the main goal for this year. It's a pretty big goal, so we'll see if we can achieve it, but that's the main one.
Yeah, that's a good goal is to have a space like that and to be able to broaden your horizons a little bit. So that would be really great for you. I could see why
Hmm.
that's on the forefront of your mind. Well,
Yeah,
I'm
and we
sure
got
it'll happen.
yeah, we got things that we want to do here at the house that require more space. Like I said, we have a small house, so
Mhm.
the big goal for this year is to hopefully just move everything into another space.
Yeah. Well, I'm very hopeful of that for you, and I'm sure you'll make that work. You've made everything else work, so I have no doubt that you'll be able to make that work and find those connections. The process for your bread and your pizza and everything, you were mentioning that sometimes it's a couple of day process. How long does it
Hmm.
take to make some of that stuff?
So, all right, so today's Tuesday. I mixed my starter to this morning so that way I can make dough tonight, let it rise overnight, and then I'll bake sometime tomorrow when the dough's ready for baking my pizza loaves or my pizza giant squares I make. So it's like a 2 to 3 day process, depending on the weather. Like if it was hot, it would be way quicker because I don't do so. When a lot of people make sourdough, they cold proof, which is like after they make their dough, they break them down into individual loaves and throw it in the fridge for 2 or 3 days to let it like slowly ferment. I don't do that. I don't have the space to do it, so I don't have a fridge big enough. And so I just do everything room temperature. So in the summer, if it's hot, it'll be quicker than and now it's winter, it's colder, so everything slows down. So it's like I have a mini cold proofing fermentation going on in my bakery.
Mhm.
So yeah, like I said, so today started Tuesday morning. Probably tomorrow night I'll have par baked pizza doughs, and then Thursday morning I'll make the pizzas for the pop up.
Oh, man. I feel like do you have to have, like, notifications on your phone or something to remember when to do things? I feel like I get so confused.
No, but I have made the mistake from time to time of forgetting to feed my starter in the morning, and it totally screws me.
Oh,
Yeah,
shoot. I don't
but
know much about sourdough starters, but I know that that's, like, the key, like, you have to feed it and you have to it's a little
yeah,
crazy to me. It's like a little animal you keep in
it
the
really is. It's like I keep seeing the memes lately of how people in their 30s and 40s that sourdough starter is our Tamagotchi.
Yeah. Oh, man, I haven't heard that. That is hilarious. That is
Yeah,
totally true,
it's
I
pretty
feel
true.
like.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like I said, I have multiple friends that got into that at least for a little phase, at the very
Hmm.
least, and so it's pretty crazy all the stuff that goes into it. So much time and effort and everything. It's very tedious, and I'm glad that I will stick to drawing and not doing that because that's just too much.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun though. It's like really cool. Like I've been in the side here, you can see my sourdough starter and how it's grown throughout the day, and it's been really fun to like learn about fermentation process and like
Mhm.
how different temperatures change things, how different flours affect things, how
Yeah.
your different feeding ratios affect things. It's a lot of fun.
Is a lot of your knowledge on that from trial and error, or do you watch a lot of YouTube videos? Do you read books? Like, where does this come from? You got a mentor or something?
I don't have the attention span to read books. I try, it just doesn't work. Um, so a lot of it is YouTube videos, trial and error. A lot of people I follow on Instagram are a lot of like bakers and stuff. So
Mhm.
like I'll see what they're doing and they'll put like little tutorials out, and so I'll play around with that. But yeah, it's mostly self-taught and learning off of other people's mistakes.
Wow, that's really neat. Yeah, it's amazing, all the stuff that we can learn from YouTube and just, social media, meeting other people that do it and that's great that you're proactive in that, learning how to do that stuff. I mean, that's important part of the process.
Yeah, that's the one thing is like didn't do great in school, but when I found something I really enjoyed, then I was able to focus on it no problem. So
Well, you and me have that in common because I was not the best student. I knew math. I was like, I am never going to need to know this to draw
same.
cartoons, and I knew that.
Yeah, same. Like the main classes I always passed every single time, like pass with flying colors, was history and sometimes science, but mostly history.
Yeah, you like history with all
Oh, I
the
love it.
stuff
Absolutely
in it.
love it.
History was a little bit hard for me because of all the specifics when it came to the testing. Like I could not remember the dates and the names. I remembered the event, like what happened, but the specifics were a little hard for
Yeah.
me. But my husband's a huge history nerd. Like he watches a lot of history videos. And he even, I don't know if you watch this channel on YouTube, but there's like a cooking through history or something like that, where this guy will find like old recipes from war times or, whatever, and he'll like recreate them. It's really neat.
Oh, that sounds interesting. I'll have to check that out. Yeah, I
Yeah,
haven't
you
seen
should.
that.
You'd like that, I think. It's really cool. And so I just love having that resource to learn. And so speaking of learning, if anybody were interested in this, anybody in the audience or someone they know, what are some tips that you would give them, even if it's not on the business side, if it's just making focaccia, whether it's bread or for the pizza dough, what kind of tips do you have?
Don't stress it. I mean, that's like I have friends hit me up all the time. They're like, "Oh, what do I do here? What do I do here? What do I do here?" Like, I did this and I did this and I did this. I'm like, just stop stressing it. You're making bread. Like, people have been making this for 10,000 years and they didn't have refrigeration or they didn't have the ratios completely right. They just threw flour and water together, let it grow, and then bake bread. Just play with it, have fun, don't stress it, and
Mhm.
eventually you'll figure it out and get where you're going.
Yeah. Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And especially when it comes to something creative. I mean, like we mentioned earlier, baking and cooking, all that culinary, stuff, it is art in itself. And just like any other art, you just have to do it and don't forget to enjoy it. I mean, that's why we do it, is to enjoy it. If you're not enjoying it, then like do something else
Yeah,
or just
absolutely.
relax a little bit. It's supposed to be fun.
I have one friend, she reaches out to me all the time about baking tips, and I just have to tell her, I'm like, just relax. Like, you learned
Yeah,
the
just do it.
basics.
Yeah.
So one thing they always taught us in the army and in art school was like learn the rules so you can break them.
That is
So
exactly what I was told in art school. That's so
yeah,
crazy.
yeah, learn the rules so you can break them,
I
and
just used that
that's what I
quote the
tell
other
her.
day. Yeah, I was doing a paint night the other night out in Manteca, and there was this lady that came up to me and she was like, I'm so nervous to be here and to do this and stuff like that. And she's like, I've always wanted to take art classes, but I don't really like to follow the rules and yada yada. And I used that exact same quote. I was like, a teacher told me you got to learn the rules to break them, and then you can have fun with it and do all that stuff. And so
Yep.
that is hilarious that you brought that up.
Yeah, so
Very
that's
true.
that would be my number one thing is just let go, have fun, don't stress it.
Yes, don't stress it, especially when it comes to things that are supposed to be fun, things that are supposed to be made through trial and error. And like you said, all throughout history, I mean, we can trace back to bread. People have been making bread
Hmm.
for a long time and they've had to figure it out along the way. And if it doesn't turn out, go feed it to your chickens or something. It's
I
okay.
mean,
You can make it
the
again.
Romans the Romans figured out how to make focaccia bread with the yeast from grape must. So I think
Wow.
I think everybody's gonna be okay with just mixing some flour and water together and letting it
Yes.
grow.
Yes, you will be okay. It's all right.
Yeah.
I love that. Now, kind of along the same lines, I had a fun question written down for you. I'm interested to see what you'll say. If you were to travel back in time to talk to your past self, now at any point, whether it's in the business journey or as a kid, and you might not have thought that you had this kind of future ahead of you, what would you tell yourself?
I'd probably go back to when I was like 15, 16, something like that. Because like that was when I had my daughter at I just turned 16, like when I found out that she was coming into the world. So I would be like, chill out, dude. Everything's gonna be cool. You're gonna be pushing 40 years old. You're gonna be baking bread and making pizza, listening to punk rock every day and skateboarding. Everything's gonna be all right. Like, more so like the last answer. Just don't stress it. Everything's gonna turn out the way you want it.
Yeah. I think that would be really good advice, and I can definitely understand that. I think sometimes we, get so caught up in the moment, and especially when things are hard, like when we're going through bad times or there's a big obstacle in our way and we're just so focused on that thing, like, we just have to remind ourselves, like, just take a deep breath, like it'll be okay. And I know for me, sometimes I struggle with anxiety and, having a bunch of different things going on. It's hard to not get overwhelmed and not to get burned out. And I've tried, especially lately, to train myself, just focus on thing at a time, one thing at a time,
Hmm.
and everything will be okay. Take a deep breath. And so, yeah, that's good advice.
Yeah, I'd also probably tell them to put a bunch of money on the Cubs breaking their World Series curse in 2016. But
Yeah, no one saw that coming, huh?
yes, that way I could be like, all right, well, now I can definitely just work work doing what I want to.
Oh man. Well, I wanted also to ask, there's different ways that you have to package your items and things like that. So before I forget to ask, I would love to know kind of the process of how, after you're done baking everything, what's the process it has to go to in order to be able to sell it at your vendor events and farmers markets.
So with my focaccia, I let it cool down, and then I just throw it in one of these bags and put my label on it.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, there's a bunch of things like the city makes you, or the county has to have you put in like how much it weighs, all the ingredients, your permit ID, your contact info, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, it's pretty easy to just let it cool down, throw a label that I custom made on there, and bag it up.
That's cool. How long
And
do you have to put an expiration date on it? Like, how long do those last?
no, I put a baked on day. So like generally, I tell people my bread lasts anywhere between 5 to 7 days, but can be frozen up to 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
Um, People tell me my bread doesn't last that long on their house because they just usually eat it all. So that's good. But yeah, so
Yeah,
I
good
would
bread.
max it out at like 7 days. Like I wouldn't push it any further than that. But unless you want to throw it in the freezer, it's good for like 6 months.
Hmm. I feel like some of the most best quality, I guess I'll say, bread and anything like that, it tends to not last as long for two reasons. One of the reason is because it's fresh, so it'll go bad faster, and for two, it usually doesn't last to the
Yeah,
expiration
exactly.
date, just like you said. So that's good.
Yeah, I would say like that. Like after day 5, it's gonna start really losing quality. Like at that point, I'd probably just like throw it in the oven with a little bit of water, so that way like it
Mhm.
softens back up. But yeah,
Do you ever get tired of eating focaccia, or is it one of those things you could never get tired of?
well, it's been over a year and I haven't gotten tired of it yet. So
Well,
um,
that's a good
I
sign.
mean,
It's a good sign.
yeah, we were joking because I had to pop up the no on Saturday we went to Fired Pizza in Stockton, and I
Mhm.
had just had pizza earlier that day. Had pizza the day before and pizza the day before, and then we went out to eat at Fired Pizza because those guys are awesome and I love the pizza they create. And I was just like, I don't get tired of pizza ever. I've
I
never
don't either.
gotten tired of it.
I love pizza. I
Yeah,
just pizza, bread, and pasta. I mean, I literally could eat that every day, I think.
yeah, I pretty much have been. So
Um, with the focaccia, especially, do you make other things other than pizza? I mean, maybe not to sell, but you at your home, like, do you make sandwiches and stuff out of it? What are all the ways that you use it?
yeah, I do sandwiches. Mostly I just like because like the loaves we keep for here, like these ones, these half loaves, and
Mhm.
you can make like small sandwiches with them or cut them in half and like the lengthways and make a bigger sandwich. But I just like to cut them small, throw it in the toaster, throw a little bit of butter on there, and call it good. Um, I have been working on like specific sandwich loaves for like local restaurants, and it's not like happening yet, but it's just something I'm working on so I can start offering it. And those ones are like the best to make sandwiches on because they're thin, but they're like light, nice and light and airy. So when you cut them in half, like it takes all the mustard or the pesto or whatever you're putting on there. Those are really good. But
Ooh,
yeah, I just
nice.
like to have it as a side with like soup or just with my eggs and steak in the morning. Just a little couple pieces
Mhm.
of focaccia with butter.
Oh man. Yep, that sounds amazing. And now I'm hungry. So
I know we were just talking about what we want for dinner, so I don't know what we're gonna order tonight. I was like, I don't feel like
um,
cooking, so
well, that's perfect. That I love that. I'm very glad that in my relationship, my husband likes to cook too, because I'm like, I love to eat, but I don't love to cook all the time. So
Yeah, so I
Um,
told my wife, I was like, I'm not cooking tonight, so let's order something on DoorDash. Probably get Chinese food.
oh, yeah, can't go wrong there either. Chinese food is great.
Yeah.
With your vendor events, where can we find you? Where are your like go-to places?
So right now, my only consistent one is at Papa Bubbly every single Thursday.
Okay.
Um, and then I do have places where I'm at, like, so starting in March, I'll be at Side Hustle Brewing, Riazzo Wines every other Sunday. And twice a month, I'm at Woodbridge Uncorked, but those dates vary. I would definitely say follow the Instagram,
Mhm.
or if you go to the website, you can sign up for notifications and you'll get a text message every time a pop up happens or when a
Oh,
porch
cool.
pickup for Fakasha happens. So,
Awesome. And then,
yeah.
yeah, I know that you're going to different vendor events. We were actually talking before we started recording that we'll be at the same event this
Yep.
weekend. So do you want to tell the audience where they can find you this weekend?
Absolutely. So Saturday we are going to be celebrating Paws and Pints' third anniversary at Dying Breed Brewing in Oakdale. I think we'll be out there from 12 to 5. There's going to
Mhm.
be a ton of vendors, live music, a pizza truck. Dying Breed makes amazing beer, so it's always a fun spot to check out. Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. I love doing events with those guys.
Yeah, I'm really excited for that one as well. We found out we're going to be neighbors under
Yeah.
the tent there. So we will both be there this weekend. That's going to be a lot of fun. I'll be drawing dogs and you will be doing your things, selling all your great
Hmm.
stuff. I definitely recommend anybody who's listening or watching to come check him out. I mean, his focaccia is just amazing, and everybody that passes by, I mean, I will say again that they were just so impressed, and so I'm really excited to be there and to get my own. I will be getting my own when I come by. And do you have any other vendor plans, vendor events other than?
Off the top of my head, no, but I have a very short-term memory on things like that. I always have to check my calendar.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's all posted up on I post everything every week on the social media stuff, and I'm like sent daily reminders. I am working with I'm trying to like develop a regular schedule around here so people know where to find me every week. And so I am
Mhm.
talking with a few other wineries on top of what I'm already working with. So I should be pretty
Cool.
consistently out there.
Well, that'll be great. Do you have any plans or connections to sell your bread like in other stores?
I have some, and I've been talking with some local restaurants like about doing those sandwich loaves, like I was saying. And
Mhm.
then I've actually been talking with one winery owner who is really excited about what I'm doing and wants to have me there pretty regularly. I don't want to say names yet because nothing's official, but we're talking
Mhm.
about selling our bread through there as well.
Okay. Well, I have one last question for you, and I would love to know where we can. Well, we know we can follow you on Instagram. Do you have a website as well, right?
Yeah, it's just my ordering website for right now, but that has every event that I do and all that kind of stuff on there as well.
Okay, perfect. So we know where to find you. We know to follow you online, which is great. And what can we expect from you in the future to see more of the pizza or more of the focaccia or still both?
It's going to be both, but it's definitely going to be heavy pizza. Um,
Okay, I'm ready for
Pizza
that.
is why I started this whole thing, and it's what excites me the most. And like I said, nobody else in this area is doing the style of pizza that I'm doing. And so it's really fun to bring something new to this area that, even though I'm not from here, I've come to love it and call it home. So,
Yeah, absolutely. And what would you say for those who don't know a whole lot about you yet or your business and everything, what separates you? Like what makes you special in this? What would you like us to know about you and your business?
that I give it everything I have,
Mhm.
and literally, like, I put everything I have into every single loaf and every single pizza that I do. Um, Doesn't matter how long it takes me, I'll get it done. And if I say I'm going to be somewhere and if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this whole episode is just a testament of, to you and why you are special in this and why people should definitely be seeking you out, whether it's at the farmers markets or the vendor events or when you are able to do your pizza more and everything. I mean, it is just, I have no doubt it is going to continue to grow and be everything you ever dreamed it would be. And so I'm just super excited that we were able to have you on the episode tonight. Do you have any last thoughts or anything that you want to leave the audience with?
I just hope to see you all out there. Come support a local guy chasing his dreams, and I promise you'll like the food because I know it's delicious. And I don't mean to toot my own horn, but
Yes, well, I can along with you. I can attest to that. It is fantastic, and you're a great guy, and you have a lot of things going for you. And so I am really excited to be your next door neighbor this weekend. Anybody in the audience that wants to come out and check us out for that, definitely come by. We will have 209 Journey stickers. We can give you a free sticker for the podcast and everything, and we'd love to meet you. Definitely get some bread. Thank you, Joseph, so much for being on the episode tonight. It was really great talking with you, hearing your story.
absolutely,
And
thanks for
we're
having me. I'm stoked to be here. I mean, it's only the second podcast I've ever done, and the last one I did was about running a marathon. So,
oh wow. Well, that's another thing to add to your resume. Running a marathon. That's great. That's a big thing. Well, yeah, it has been great hearing your story and having you on here. I can't wait to keep following you online and again to of course see you this weekend with all the things I'm sure we'll run into each other again. And so you have a great night. Thank you very much for everything.
yeah, you have a great night too. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, everybody, thank you so much for joining us for another episode here on the 209 Journey podcast. I had a great time talking to Joseph and learning all about focaccia bread and all the ways that you can use it in the pizza. We hope that you have a great rest of your day, evening, wherever and whenever you're listening to this. And be sure to check us out online. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Be sure to follow our pages on Instagram and on Facebook. You can find us at the 209 Journey, and we will catch you in the next episode.